Welcome to Prepared for Parenthood, the podcast for hopeful, expectant, and new parents with little ones up to age 5. I'm your host, Dr. Stephanie Dueger, a psychotherapist, author, educator, parent coach, and married mother of 2. On this show, we'll discuss everything from the most up-to-date practicals of best supporting your young children, to thriving in relationship as a family, to more surprising topics around the psychology and development of babies from conception through age 5. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. I'm thrilled to have you here today. Welcome back to Prepared for Parenthood. I am so honored today to have Laura Uplinger as our guest. Since the late 1970s, Laura has been a proponent and educator in the field of conscious conception, pregnancy, labor, and breastfeeding. She's the vice president of the Brazilian National Association for Prenatal Education and teaches some of the classes in their training. Laura's daughter, Sarah Uplinger, directed the documentary film Pregnancy and Civilization, The Power of Pregnant Women Over Our Future in 2022, and Laura was a co-producer on this project. Fluent in 4 languages, she leads workshops and lectures on very early parenting at conferences and in webinars for birth professionals and the public in the Americas and Europe. She also addresses high school and university students in Argentina, Brazil, and Chile. Additionally, Laura advocates the building of parks in exquisite locations all over the world, dedicated to pregnant mothers, where they can live this important time in admirable physical, mental, and spiritual conditions. Welcome, Laura. I am so thrilled to have you here with us today.
Thank you, Stephanie. The honor is all mine. Thank you so much for this podcast.
You've been in the prenatal and perinatal psychology field and educational field for a very long time. How did your journey begin?
I was 22. I was finishing university on applied psychology, like subliminal propaganda questionnaires for opinions in psychology in France in the 70s. And when you want to step back, I did not want that to be my field. At the beginning, it was wonderful. I learned so much. But then when I saw what it would lead me to, I did not want to get into subliminal advices to people through cartoons or ads on TV. I was 22 and I had a real question to the universe. I want to know how the human being works. I don't want to belong to an ideology. And lo and behold, I stepped onto very ancient teachings over there in Europe. And they would say about the imagination of pregnant women, they would say about souls. I did not know about souls. I hadn't had a true spiritual education. But esotericism had been totally unknown to me. The idea of many lifetimes, it was all new. I embraced it all with a passion when you're 22. And when I stumbled across this idea of prenatal psychology, it was a time of genetic determinism. So one thing science was really sure of, whatever the mother lives through during pregnancy won't affect the baby. So she can smoke, not too much. She can drink, not too much. And she can have all kinds of states of mind. And you will only start educating your child after birth. And every single tradition would say the reverse, that the inner life of a pregnant woman was so important, from African tribes to American indigenous people, but also to great traditions from ancient Greece or Egypt. And I found it fascinating. I loved the idea of knowing something that science perhaps would take 100 years to discover, because science was in love with genetics. And it was wonderful because 10 years later, they discovered epigenetics, how they work. And I was the happiest woman on earth. Suddenly I could be on the spotlight. I joined APA I went to the second conference in 85 in San Diego, but I joined the board in 88. And what a joy to see the very beginning of the first talks on epigenetics. Suddenly we were certified by a scientific field.
So I know we've come so far, and yet still many people act as if parenthood doesn't actually start until after birth. But your understanding is really different. When does parenthood, do you believe, begin?
I'm a very lyrical person. So for me, parenting starts when you think about having a child, especially if you're already with a partner and you're envisioning. You envision with your mind, of course, but your heart and the tenderness and the honor it would mean to become a parent. And then you plan to have a family. You plan perhaps very spontaneously, but you don't plan. It's like sending an invitation letter. If you go to the house of a great friend, but uninvited, of course he or she will receive you. But it's not the same thing as when you have received an invitation. So I used to joke with my husband. There was no internet at the time, but we would write to the galaxy like a letter, but a letter in our minds. We're speaking about it. We didn't actually take paper to write it. Some people do. I say, here's who we are. My husband, he is like this. I am like this. This is how our couple lives. This is what we believe in. Is there somebody wanting to come? Almost as if there was an intergalactical internet. And we were heard. It took us about a year and a half, almost 2 years to conceive, and we were fine. First, we did not know if we were going to conceive. Second, it was up to the soul to say when. What a treat. What a treat to finally surrender to this possibility of inviting a person. I was in my early 30s and I had spent several years trying to avoid to conceive. And suddenly, it's another love making. That's why before we make love to conceive, can prepare you to be really open. And when we're together, when the two are offering this possibility, we did not demand a child. We never thought that to have a child be our right. But there we were. The universe listened and sent us darling girl. It was so sweet. It was so good to be her parent. And a lot of our strength in parenting came from that kind of a conscious preconception and conception.
And did you hear from this little being when she was coming or during your pregnancy, or did she arrive and she was quiet in there?
My husband wanted to know if it was a girl or a boy, and I did not want any kind of ultrasound. I remember going in the south of France. We were in a spiritual retreat, and I was watching sunrise. And I asked, are you a boy or a girl? I was 4 months, 3.5 months pregnant. And the first day I felt a strength in me, so humongous, like it's not my kind of strength, very different. Ooh, this is good. This kind of strength I want in a person. But then that strength morphed completely into a huge feeling of tenderness, of softness. So, oh, interesting. Then it can be a boy or a girl. It has the two sides. There were other days in that month I stayed there that it started with the tenderness, something that didn't belong to me. It was not who I was, something I was receiving, almost as if the being was joking at me. Here I have this, and then the tenderness would morph into strength. And she's now in her 30s. Sarah is her name. And she has those two qualities. And she does not look like me. Emotionally, we are different, but that strength and that tenderness really are hers.
I love that. What are some of the things that you learned from studying ancient cultures about how we invite beings into the world to be with us?
The Vedas, they considered the sperm of a man to be sun ray made liquid and gold as sun ray made solid. So you have the ethereal ray of sunshine, and then we are made of light. I mean, in so many teachings, you really read the word light. Recently, all over the internet, you can see a reaction with zinc. When the sperm of even a rat enters the egg, there is a light phenomenon. So, at the moment of conception, it's the man with his polarity who goes and fetches the soul that has chosen this couple. I don't know if every couple making love and conceiving a child will have a soul attracted to it. But at least those who have already been speaking about it, so it pertains to the man. And I loved this idea. I loved surrendering, like black earth, completely receptive to the rays of the sun. It empowered me. It's funny. We are feminists in many ways. We want the power, but suddenly to surrender your power to light so that life can happen in you, that was a huge strength for me. 21 years later, after the birth of our child, my husband was consciously going away, and we knew his end was near. He was much older than I was. And I said, but you're so quiet, you're so tranquil. Your eyes have so much light. What is helping you through this process of dying? He says, I am not sure, but conscious conception had a role. He had 2 children from a previous marriage. My daughter's older sister is 30 years older than she is. But these 2 had been conscious conceptions too. This is a very mystical person. And I understood that if you're going to fetch somebody in the other world, it might help you with your relationship with the other world when it's your turn to go back from where we all come from. That was very impressive. And conscious death is something gorgeous. But our podcast today is on conscious conception. What did I learn? I learned that at every step of the way, the baby in the womb, or even the concept, receives the energies the mother is sending, not just the food she eats, but what she's thinking about the universe, about herself. All that becomes food and will conduct even the way the genes will express themselves. Well, this is true epigenetics. But I felt so confident. I did not want to have any guarantees. But Laura, what if there is a birth defect? Then there will be a birth defect. I just will ask heaven to give me the strength to go about it. But what if you die at childbirth? What if your child is not compatible with life? I had friends, doctors who wanted to know. Listen, I love knowing, but this time I'm not going to know. I didn't read a book on embryogenesis, which I love embryology. I was me and the universe, knowing that I was food for that being arriving. And I was going to be okay with whoever was arriving. When she came, and she was by the fireplace, it was a home birth, my husband and I told her, we thought of Sarah for your name in case you were a girl. She smiled. And of course, her name is Sarah. And in books of psychology, smiling for real might take some 3 months. There she was in the first instance, and she did like that with her hands, fingers. She could see it because we just had the fireplace. And Stephanie, in the books of psychomotricity, the ability of joining your thumb with the other fingers also comes at the age of 3 months. So I realized it might take 3 months of until we recover from a difficult birth. Those births were observed because those were scientific books I consulted when I was studying psychology. So I am always amazed at how simple life can be, how we complicate things, also because of fear. I decided that fear wasn't going to be a good advisor. Why to give it such a power? And I knew that life could be difficult, of course. But fear was not going to be my companion, and it paid off.
That's incredible. And so I know that you sometimes speak to high schoolers. What do you share with them?
I usually share what's being talked about in the news right now. It's like the cells that migrate from the baby to the mom, from the mom to the baby, extraordinary things. And what I found out, especially with high schoolers, is that they're interested in their birth, in their life in the womb. They're not looking to the future, oh, the kind of father I will be. Some ask 1 or 2 questions about that. But most of them, I remember when girls say, it was in Southern California, she says, am I myself or the one my mother made? Like how much of who my mother was did I become or will I become? It's a fascinating question. We're into philosophy, and it will depend on her self-awareness. Where do we come from? What are we doing here? Where are we going to go after here? And young ones love that at the age of 17, 18. Oh, and the questions are amazing. In Chile, in a high school, there was a girl who came to see me later on. I had shown them the Time magazine cover of October 4th, 2010, when you see a pregnant woman beautifully naked and happy. And there's a sentence, how the first 9 months shape the rest of your life. But I had shown that to them on a little laptop that was really one of those first ones of Apple. So they were fascinated by the laptop, the naked lady, Time magazine. So somehow we laughed and made jokes. But afterwards, she came and told me, I couldn't stop crying throughout your presentation. I'm not a sad person. What happened to me? Perhaps you're recognizing something. I'm giving you a workshop tomorrow. You can be my guest. She was 17, 18. So then the next morning, there she was. And at lunchtime, she came, I don't understand it. It's resonating all through me. There's something here that I had never heard before. She became a doula, then a midwife, and she's now a Chilean midwife. Once in a while, she sends me a little note. So this is so alive in some of us. It's our story. And there she was, discovering a whole field for her life.
I have a daughter who's 17 now, and she's asking those questions as well, wanting to know more about where do we come from originally and what's the whole meaning of life. And she knows a lot about her birth and my experience of being pregnant just because we've shared a lot of that. And she's seen her video of her birth. And so I think a lot of things start to make sense, but they have these big, amazing questions that are so important. And it's incredible to be able to help them find their way through it, even if we don't know the answers for sure.
This is true. When a friend of mine told me to ask Sarah, my daughter, if she would accept to edit the documentary, because we had 25 hours already filmed, I said, I don't think so. She's an actress. Why would she? It seemed to me so improbable that I had to ask, because the universe might come and talk or something. So I asked her, and she immediately said, it will be an honor. And she did do the editing. It was the pandemic. She had time. There was absolutely no work. And once everything was finished, she asked me, now I want to understand what I have done. Which books should I read? Her first APA conference was when she was 6 months old. I was able to perform that conference. She was in my room. It was in Amherst, Massachusetts. She knew so many of these people, Marcia Axis and Thomas Verny and Michelle O'Donnell. She had been with them. And for her, those were normal things that she had always heard. Now she was going to read The Embodied Mind, Parenting for Peace, Tomorrow's Baby. And she was delighted. And now she's preparing to be a mother. So that's great as an
That's
education.
beautiful too.
Yeah.
And why do you feel like the actual conception is so important?
Perhaps you have heard about fractals. When you take a cauliflower into pieces, the tiniest piece of a cauliflower looks like a tiny cauliflower. That kind of fractal, that is conception. If you would ask me, what do you wish for humanity? I wish so many great things. But one thing I would say, if from now on, every child conceived could be conceived out of love, just that. I work much more, but that already would change completely the energy, the very fractal of our humanity. We unfortunately only stopped thinking about real love so much later. Sexual experience doesn't always mean love, but if they could love each other, this couple conceiving and being aware that they are open for a child to come and look at life with tenderness, with wanting to share, with feel kinship with all lives, and then open their home for one more soul, that would be extraordinary. The fractal, the throw of the dice will have been done in many ways. I don't want to come into the epigenetic determinism now that we escaped. But I know that if we give life a chance, if we give love a chance, so much could happen.
And can I ask one more or two more questions? The first being, With conception being so important, there's so many couples out there who have challenges getting pregnant, or individuals who'd like to have a baby who don't have a partner. And so we've moved into this amazing technological era of being able to create babies outside of a womb and then implant them into a womb and bring them into the world that way, which sometimes requires the freezing of sperm and egg and things like that. Are there ways, do you think, that an individual having a baby alone or couples who are needing to have a child in that way can bring love into that environment where it's more kind of laboratory centered?
Yeah. First and foremost, having trouble to conceive, I would advise the couple to look into osteopathy. There's something that the body speaks, and osteopaths, they have a way. Sometimes after the couple has tried everything, there's this mother able to conceive and this father, because we never know. I want both of them in osteopathy. I often have these cases of women who had to get an egg from another woman, a donor, and wanted a solo child. And the only thing I have seen that works, because there's so much love, so much awareness, so much desire, is truthfulness. You tell this child in your womb or afterwards, because they often have trouble sleeping. The body of that mother will have a higher tendency to a preeclampsia. And there's sometimes births are complicated. These scheduled C-sections, not easy, but at least to be one-on-one with the child, that look, this is a different route. And then the embryos who are frozen, sometimes for months, to have a cell experience at such a low temperature. But if you decipher those experiences for the baby in your womb or already born, especially when they are sleeping, you talk to them while they are sleeping and you say, what happened within you? What are these circumstances? Why these choices? And there you are with this child. I would advise not to send the child to daycare center so easily, not to give a nanny too easily. Just be more present with this child and know that he or she came to you. And so this can have a meaning. I remember Jung saying, human beings, we can withstand anything, provided there is a meaning. Some people prefer to have a child and the child will be theirs. They don't want to adopt. The child is not for me this lifetime. 5 years later, they conceive without even knowing they were about to conceive. So we're always surprised by how we live our biology. But in the cases of the babies who have difficult beginnings because of in vitro and assisted conception, what I have seen that works best is this truthfulness from the mother and from the father, and a lot of holding. I have a little friend, she's now 1.5 years old, and she was in assisted conception. This was something because of the man sperm having very low motility. The child is adorable, had a hard time at the beginning, but the mother, a wonderful nutritionist, took it on herself to say, I'm here with you, I am yours, and you relax. Each mother will find her language, but at the very basis of everything, to compose with truth, complete truth.
Sounds like truth and support, lots of support. You see a woman who's pregnant and you want to invite her to create the best experience that she might be able to create for that growing baby and herself. What might you offer to share with her?
Right now, today, I would take her to a gorgeous concert. It could be Albinoni, Vivaldi, Rossini, something completely out of this world that takes you flying. And I would say, all these musics, and I would go with her. Imagine, make it be the soundtrack of the happiest life for this person you're expecting. With other women, perhaps other days, I would just go walking in nature and showing how gorgeous nature is, which thank goodness life works through me. So I want to be the instrument, the best instrument life has. So the surrender to life, anything that can elevate your mind, can make you more near your soul. Because they say the soul of the baby works with the soul of the mother, visits the body in the making, but the mother can say, go and gather throughout the universe the best materials. Come on, help me. Let's have this baby be incredible, incredibly gifted to be alive here. Because it's very serious when a soul decides to incarnate. We are here uniting heaven and earth. To live this task of uniting heaven and earth, we will need lots of inner work, first to unite it inside of us. So we need a great brain circuitry. We need a great neurophysiology. We need good health. So I also recommend a book that was written in 1929 by Geoffrey Hodgson. He was a clairvoyant from the Theosophical Society, and he observes a friend of his, one friend, and there she is pregnant. And he describes the whole pregnancy. It's an amazing book, The Miracle of Life. Gives you an idea of the possibility of a pregnancy, because each pregnancy is so different from the other. That's why I love it. Oh, they asked me to write a book about how to be pregnant. There's no such a book. Let's never write it.
We've been speaking today with Laura Uplinger. She is the Vice President of the Brazilian National Association for Prenatal Education and has been a long time proponent of conscious conception, pregnancy, labor, and breastfeeding, birth, all of that. It's been such a pleasure speaking with you today, Laura, and I love all that you've shared.
Stephanie, I love seeing your smile. Would love to meet you in person, know more about your daughter. Godspeed, woman, and thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much for being here. Thank you so much for listening to the Prepared for Parenthood podcast today. I hope you found this episode educational, informational, and conversational, and that you'll join me again for another episode soon. If you enjoyed listening to today's podcast, I'd very much appreciate if you would rate, review, and subscribe. If you're interested in more information related to today's podcast, or are looking for parent coaching or courses, you can find my information in the show notes or online at preparedforparenthood.com.